My name is Alonso Santana, and I play the guitar.
I'm Lord Fowl. My actual name is Isaiah Vaca. I'm the vocalist of Civerous.
My name is Daniel. I'm the guitarist of Civerous.
Drew, the stage name is Naraka, and I play bass.
My name is Aidan Neuner, and I play the drums.
Like initially, I was the leader and the person that really got everyone in the band. I picked everyone out. So I guess you could say the leader or the founder.
Non-musically, I do a lot of the logistics and stuff, and I do all of the money. So I have like a spreadsheet where I keep track, because we'll pay for stuff on tour, like on our own, and then at the end of it, when we have all the cash from merch sales and stuff, I'll pay everybody out.
I try to make sure everyone's voice is heard, as a role in the band, definitely. I definitely take a leadership role, whether that be musically or not. I think even not, I tend to step in and try to show some guidance or get us there.
Hype man, moral support. I don't handle a lot of logistics, but I'm always available to help with those when needed.
Being the responsible one, I guess. I don't really party or anything. So, if the guys want to, do their own thing and stuff, and someone needs to be sober, I can help take care of whatever needs to be taken care of,
How would you describe, given your experience, how would you describe the current state of death metal as you see it?
I think it's still pretty strong. I think there was a big OSDM thing that happened for 2017 to 2021, and there was way too much of it. I think that's tapered off, and it's gotten a little more technical and proggy in a lot of ways with a lot of bands, obviously Blood Incantation and stuff, but there's been a lot of bands kind of moving more towards prog, like Us and Tomb Mold.
A little quick history lesson on the more modern state of death metal. There was a big resurgence, I'd say, around 2015, 14, 16, especially in Los Angeles. I would say a lot of what death metal is now is because of the creation of Blood Incantation and Spectral Voice. And because of those two bands, it spawned a lot of just new artists and new projects coming up. And initially in that little time I was saying, hundreds popped up. And now it's kind of, they either fell off or the ones still doing it are doing it. But I would say it's pretty healthy, and the people that want to do it are still doing it, and the people that want to listen to it and hear it are still there for it, which is good, because without them, there would probably be no scene.
There's been a big resurgence of old school death metal. There've been some bands kind of messing with bringing in new influences and new genres. So I think it's exciting. So many of the bands that we play with and our contemporaries, everyone's kind of in the same boat. It's a very gig-based economy and everything, and that has shifted in a way. And death metal's always been kind of underground, so it's kind of been away from the big labels and whatnot. So I don't know, it's just cool to be a part of that now.
I think it's in a very good place. Granted, coming in as a pretty, I don't want to say naive person, but I don't necessarily know if I have the same musical background as a lot of my peers. But from the looks of it, it seems to be in a pretty good place. I think the genre is being pushed into different areas.
From a couple of years ago when we first started, it was a resurgence of death metal, but compared to how it is now, I feel it's a lot more bigger now compared to how it was when I was in high school.
Ooh, good question. There's been such an influx of bands and projects, even bedroom projects, internet projects, Instagram pages. It's made us, if anything, more serious, because I wouldn't say there's a competition. I don't think music is competitive. It's not sports. But it does, because of the influx in as many projects and musical endeavors as there is out there, it has made us buckle down and be more serious, and really want to take it as far as we can and as professionally and as serious as we can.
Having joined Civerous late, I think that the guys have a very established vision for the band that I kind of just aligned with. Because I come from more of like a DIY ethos, like hardcore, punk, whatever. And that still exists within metal. But Civerous is kind of the first band that I've been in that's like at that next step where it's like labels and things like that start coming into the question. This is the one where I'm kind of the outlier, because the guys have like a very mystique, like they want a mystique for the band, and like there's a lot of live performance stuff that we're starting to expand. And I just want to play shows. So I'm like, I don't care if it's a backyard show or if it's a big venue with stage props. I just want to play shows. Civerous is like at a point where we all want to take the next step, and like based on a lot of our peers and stuff, we've always kind of just aligned with like our vision for writing and stuff like that, where we're not like purposefully trying to be different, but we all just have such different influences that it leads to this like mixing pot where we're bound to take something that's not like typical of death metal, and I think that keeps us going, because we're always looking for like, what can we do to now hone this sound or like evolve this sound? Because I don't think we want to write like Maze Envy 2.0, but we definitely want to keep that core and just like keep expanding and experimenting around it.
The songwriting has definitely changed, because the first album was fairly simple for the most part. Like there were still like some technical elements, and there's still like our flavor of like the doom stuff and the pretty stuff. But like as we did Maze Envy, it changed into like, okay, let's like start working a little bit harder. Let's start putting things that are a little more difficult. Let's start doing solos and stuff like that. And that kind of pushed us to like level up slightly, and it got a good response, so it was a good idea.
What challenges have you faced trying to make your mark on
I just want it to be genuine, and I hope people feel that, because the way that I look at it when it comes to music, whether it's death metal or just something else, I want it to be something for people that it's an escape for them. Let music be a home to someone if they don't have that.
I think our genre influences aren't necessarily like as fast-paced as a lot of traditional like death metal music. You know, I think you really have to appreciate and know the sound in order to maybe understand what we're doing, but not really. I think like at the same time, no matter what our influences are, I think we're also still trying to paint a picture, trying to find an identity for ourselves in the music. And speaking for myself, I think I maybe try to create like a kind of music that has an effect on listeners, whether it be good, bad, emotional.
I think it's really just like the way that we hold ourselves with our musicianship and our performance. We have a unique aspect where like a bunch of the guys were dancers for years. Drew and I have both been performing for years, so we understand. I actually learned this more from like marching band, where performance and like your energy is literally what drives the crowd to give you more performance. So faces, like drum, I never will forget my drumline teacher Brandon teaching us like, find your drum face and use that and make it your character, and doing like performance aspects like matching stick tricks and stuff like that. That opened my eyes to like, okay, I don't want to be the guy that's like flipping sticks like crazy, but there's definitely a performance aspect. And if you're sitting there like looking like you're cruising, that's cool, but it doesn't really elevate the performance in a way that I think a lot of people realize.
Trying to be different, trying to make your own sound, which I believe and I'm confident that Civerous has created their own sound. which says a lot because I've been in bands since I was a teenager. I'm turning 33 next month. I've been doing this for over 15, 16 years. And I can confidently say that this band has been probably one of the first times that we've created our own sound that is unique not only to us, but to the scene itself. And I think that's why we are where we are right now.
I think overall we've done a pretty good job. We're getting booked on a lot of cool shows and stuff. Like, obviously there's always room for growth. You know, we all still have day jobs and we're all still working towards it. Like, it would be awesome to do this full time. And that's always the challenge, is like, oh, hey, I'm going to Europe for 12 days. I need all this off of work. It's like, you have to say yes or I'm going to quit, you know? And then we have something coming up next year where it'll be like 3 weeks. And it's like, hey, you told me I could do it, so I'm going to take a leave of absence and then I'll see you in 3 weeks. And I feel like that's definitely the hardest part, is like logistically, like getting us to be able to take the time off, be financially secure, and then go from there.
How would you describe Civerous' sound? If you were to listen to Civerous, originally for the first time, what would be like the first impression?
So like we always called ourselves Death Doom, and I feel like that's an apt description. The second album and like what we're doing for the new stuff, it's definitely like getting more prog. And then we had someone describe us as Death Gaze, which was really funny, and I'd never heard that before, and I looked it up and it was pretty cool. And I think there are some like Death Gaze sections, but like I don't want to be douchey and say like, oh, you can't define us, but it's like, no, it's like it's a Death Doom band, and then you take a little elements here and there, and that's what it is.
One of my favorite passages is in Labyrinth Charm and then Maze Envy, where we go into like these almost like shoegaze type chords with like blast beats on top and growls and everything. And I think sonically we've carved out this weird like space, and we've seen it, a few people have said it, it's like death gaze, and I love it. I think it's hilarious, because everyone remembers when like Def Heaven came on the scene and it was like shoegaze and black metal, black gaze, oh my god, everyone just wants like a label for something. So granted we fit in those, but I think we do enough differently that like people are coming up with new labels, and that's a good sign to me. They put it in a box, whatever, but we're gonna continue to kind of try to push that and see what we can explore in that realm. So for me, it's funny, but it's also kind of a compliment in a way. Yeah.
How do you feel like Civerous has impacted your life personally?
Personally, I think it's kind of made me a very dedicated person. I think it kind of shaped the way I've worked with a lot of bands, like musically, and you know what our goals are. You know, I think this band kind of guided me into identifying what's serious and what's not.
Personally, Civerous flipped my life upside down. I joined right after COVID. I was actually up, I think it was after Thanksgiving, 2022, 2021. And I was with my best friend up in Portland. We were doing Thanksgiving with my parents. And he and I hadn't seen each other in a few years. We were catching up. And we were getting ready to go to the airport. And we kind of had a little heart-to-heart, just talking about life. He's got kids now. And we were like, we were asking each other what you still want to do in life. And I was in a local hardcore band with some guys. Shout out Juan and Dan and Germs. And I was like, I really want to be in a touring band. And like that band, I think, could have gotten to that point if we kept going, but everyone got busy with life, and still love those guys to death. But the next day, I flew home, and Andrew Soley, our producer, I had worked with him with some other projects, and he finally called me. He had shown me Civerous when I went to see him in the studio, kind of planting the seed, I think, now in hindsight. And he was like, what would you think about being in Civerous? And I was like, whoa. Because I grew up trying to start metal bands. I'm from Connecticut, and we did have a scene, but it was microscopic. and I had a few friends that I was able to get to pick up instruments, and we would jam. Nothing ever took off. So then coming to LA and just getting into a scene and then having the work pay off, I was like, holy shit, this like is happening. So that was huge for me. It was literally like a dream come true.
If we're going to be personal and if we're going to be honest and open, I've made lots of sacrifices. Family sacrifices. I've missed birthdays and family events, and personal relationships have gone to the wayside, unfortunately. If I want to take this serious and get as far as I know that we can and that we will, sacrifices must be made. So it has impacted me in a lot of negative ways, but also it's impacted me in a lot of positive ways. There is things that when I was a teenager, going to shows and festivals and things like that I saw people do and other bands accomplish, that at that time I thought was only like a dream for me. When I was 13, 12 years old, I went to my first show at Chain Reaction with Daniel, who's in the band. I saw a band called The Faceless. I'd never been to a metal show in my life. It was crazy. I saw all these guys pull up in a van, hop out of the van, dirty with little tour laminates, and they played this amazing show where, at the time I thought this whole room was filled, just hundreds of people. It was probably only 120 people. And I said at that time, because I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up, I said, that's what I want to be when I grow up. And since I was 12 years old, that's kind of been my focus. So it's really been like a chase. And like I said, there's a lot of things that I saw that were like unattainable, that fortunately, also what I said before, with the sacrifices that I've made, have allowed me to reach those goals. I've gone to different parts of the world that I never would have thought I would have gone to. I've met people who were idols and influences to me that are now very good friends of mine. The one person, Derek Rydquist, who was my biggest influence, who made me want to become a singer, is now not only my mentor, he is like an older brother to me. And it's really been like a full circle thing for me. And I as much as I've put in and as much as I've lost, I would say that it's worth it to be where I'm at right now. And it's only going to get bigger for me.
Personally, it's done a lot. I've never traveled this much before. Like, I had gone to Seattle one time, but since being in Civerous, I've gone to Seattle 3 more times since then. And I didn't have a passport before I was in this band. I went to Mexico with my parents on a cruise once, and you didn't need a passport for that to go to Ensenada. But, like, I've gotten to go to Mexico and Canada and Copenhagen, and now we're going to get to do, like, a big thing through Europe. And it's like, it's crazy. It's just like putting out music. Suddenly we get to like travel. I get to meet people I've only talked to on Twitter. I get to meet some guy who's like 6,000 miles away but has listened to the music that we make. Like that's fucking awesome. That's really makes me happy.
Yes.
And maybe, is there anything different?
I have definitely made mistakes, and I know there are things I know I could have handled better. When I was going to therapy for a little bit, my therapist even had told me like that there is a balance to everything, and I neglected a lot of things because I was trying to, I guess, get to where we are now. I feel like I put a lot of things on hold. Relationships suffered. I have thought about this before, and like I know I could have done better.
I think I'm currently doing something differently. I've sacrificed a lot of time away from my family, which kind of like tends to affect me a little more. Like that's the main one, I guess, is like I don't get to see a lot of people as much as I'd want to. I'm currently working on like balance. So there's not necessarily anything I do differently, because I know it's all like, gonna pay out in the end, hopefully. And I think my family understands that too, because they see how dedicated I am. But like also, I just want to be there.
No, I honestly, like, everything I've done I felt has been worth it. I've had to spend a bunch of money, but I feel like I make it back in the end, or it's just like, it's a hobby at the end of the day. Like, I don't feel bad about buying video games, and I wouldn't feel bad about spending $200 to get new shirts so that we can sell them. Like, it feels good. I just enjoy doing it overall. I wouldn't trade it for anything.
First of all, I wouldn't change anything. Cause at a young age, I knew that like I just wanted to play drums until I die, and I don't care if it's in a band or in my basement. To be able to do it with a group of guys that all have the same vision, and we all kind of creatively gel and have like so many bands and similar for influences and stuff, is really just like, I don't know, it's so satisfying and gratifying to be able to do that, but there definitely are sacrifices. Scheduling and stuff like that. We all give up our Saturday nights. Everyone, that sounds crazy to people when we tell them that, but for us, that's well worth it. This is like our weekly hangout. We don't really see each other too much outside of this. We obviously hang out, but this is like, we look forward. Everyone looks forward to like coming together and practicing and being able to get this outlet.
My patience. My patience with professionalism within the band and the exterior, which probably affects us the most. We all catch ourselves and tend to be pretty honest with ourselves when we think we're slipping up, or things could have been done differently. I think we've all been pretty vocal about how those things affect us. I think we've become affected the same way, just getting short shrifted as like a very early band with pay or the experience like on stage, just the very little things on how our scene can like conduct itself. And it's not even our scene, it's just people, what I'm saying? Like, you show up to a venue and your experiences are kind of what matter.
And definitely what is harder is knowing what I've sacrificed now, and as hard as it's been, not only the relationship with my baby mother and my son, and that's only at these stages. That's only at escaping the local scene and getting signed to a label and being able to tour what we're doing now. And I know as we travel more and crawl up the totem pole, so to speak, higher, it's only going to get worse. I'm only going to sacrifice more. I'm only going to miss more. But on a personal level, because I have a son, and because I'm very passionate, and because I love my son so much, my thing, what I've always told him, and what I've told his mother, is that I want to show him what dedication and hard work can produce realistically. My whole thing is that when I die, or when my son is old enough, the one thing that I want to leave behind for him is I want him to know, like, or I want him to realize, like, hey man, like, my dad did this and my dad did that, and my dad was very, very cool, and I'm very proud of my dad. So I really want to do all this for my seed, whether it be him or if I have more children in the future. It's all for that, you know what I mean? I see it as a way as carving my own path and really chasing a passion. If you're set on doing the bare minimum and passing and doing what you're supposed to, then you're not living life.
I know power dynamics are a huge thing, and when you start getting bigger, people start arguing about bills and stuff like that. And again, I think we're very lucky to have a group of guys where everyone you asked that question earlier about like your role within the band non-musically, and even though I'm kind of the silly hype man, like Drew is an angel and is our money man. His job is a hotel manager, so it like directly just corresponds. Isaiah handles a lot of merch and stuff, so we, in that way, I think we want to keep our ethos of like the do-it-yourself and kind of like keeping the team of people. Like, we use the same videographers, we use the same graphics people. But there definitely becomes like you work with a label, they might contract you to only work with certain people. So it really becomes like you have to invest in the band and make the smartest investments you can for the vision of the band.
It's hard being in like the middling area where it's like I still have to have a job and I can't do this full time, but we're starting to like commit to things where it's like I'm doing this a lot. Like I'm taking like 3 weeks off of work or whatever. I feel like that's the hardest part. And then, you know, when you're like over 30 and you tell people you're in a band, like sometimes it comes across weird where it's like, oh yeah, I work at a hotel, like I'm a manager at a hotel, and I have to like tell like the corporate people like, oh, I can't do that meeting. Why not? Like I'm gonna be in Europe. I'm playing in my band. Like, oh, you're in a band? Yes, I'm in a death metal band, and it's very strange because I wear a suit and stuff, but it just doesn't come across that way.
Well, with Maze Envy, that album resonates with us because when we were writing that, during that time, we were all going through some really like life-changing stuff. We were able to put our emotions into it. Like for me at least, like for the stuff that I contributed, that came from a very emotional place. The guys helped make it that much more like better to what I was trying to convey, and I'm very thankful for that.
Well, the whole last album was all about depression, and we all had like a very bad time during the pandemic, so that's where the album came out of. The first album was like we started writing it like at the beginning of the pandemic, and then after that it was like, okay, we're gonna start being sad because we're all sad right now. I feel like that was like the biggest like thematic influence we had. The whole last song is about going to hell and like climbing your way out, which is the metaphor for depression. It's like going to the center of the maze, finding your peace, and then finding your way back out of the maze.
We tend to try to draw like a very emotional like picture. I think me and Daniel's songwriting, which, you know, we're the primary songwriters in the band. We like a lot of post-rock, like a lot of sad droning music. So sometimes that can kind of bleed into our band, and it's interesting because we have like an aggressive like sound or tone. Sometimes very sludgy, and like, you know, there's a lot of weight to it, whether it be like something dark and dissonant and heavy, or something like, you know, heavily emotional or whatever. You know, I think we try to lead with that.
Where do you feel like your sound fits in the big picture?
I think our sound is very unique. I would say that most people feel that way. Most publications, most music critics, most websites, reviewers are finally starting to see that, which shows that, you know, like lots of bands get in this state where they work very hard and they're like, oh, like none of our hard work is being noticed. In our case, it is, and I think that is nice.
So we've got like all the big bands. We've got Autopsy and Cannibal Corpse and Obituary and stuff. So those are the top tier. Those are the classics. And then you go down a level, and that's when you start getting like Toxic Holocaust and Napalm Death. I might put Napalm Death up, but just like it goes down a tier, and I feel like we're maybe like 4 tiers down. We're underneath Blood Incantation, or underneath Spectral Voice, but like we open for bands like that, and we're like just ready to like jump into like tier 3, tier 4, like in that area where it's like we could headline a tour and people would show up. Like we're almost there. And I feel like maybe the next album will put us over. Like it was really cool getting the Fantano review, and that really boosted our image a lot. And I'm hoping like, okay, LP3, like let's get another 9. That would be fucking great. At least an 8, like something good, and then that would kind of like help push us a little bit further. And it's like, okay, now we can play at the Wiltern or the Belasco or the Mayan or something like that, or the main stage at the Santa Ana Observatory.
I hope that we're able to not just capture the listeners of like our age. I hope we're able to reach out to like younger people, and like I said, let it be an escape. I think that's just like really the big thing for me. I want our music to be a form of escape. Yeah, it's brutal. Yeah, it's there's like really heavy parts, and like we do have some calm moments and stuff, but like overall I just want our music to reach out to other people and let us be some form of escape. Grab as much listeners as we can that can find some form of peace with it within the chaos.
I want to try and kind of relating to like an emotional, like kind of standpoint that me and Daniel tend to have in the band. That's where I kind of wanted to sit, and I also want to push that face of the genre, I think, with a lot of like heavy emotional, like kind of like chord progressions and stuff like that. Like I enjoy harmony that way, and I think it can kind of lead to a heavy sound. Not like in a metal way, but like in a very kind of like hit you where it hurts. Like if you feel the music, like you'll understand, I guess. So I'm trying to affect the listener in a way, in a very heavily emotional way.
If the state of death metal could change, what would you change about it?
I feel like there's a pretty good scene. There's this kind of like, I'm not gonna call all the Gen Z kids bad or TikTok or whatever. I think that's really reductive. But like, there's a lot of younger people who are getting into it for the first time, and they're maybe a little overzealous and kind of just want to like dive right in. And it's like, no, you got to put a little work in. You need to listen to the big bands from the 90s, and you need to kind of work your way into this. Like your first band cannot be Abominable Putridity. Like you gotta start slow and get up there. Like listen to Sabbath and then push through. Like don't just dive right into the deep end.
Everyone's ego driven. No matter if you do art, you do work, you do bands, you do anything, you're always gonna think what you do is the best, like in the world. You know what I mean? I would like to change the whole competitive thing, because the more bands that come up and the more bands that get more shine and more attention, it only creates lanes and opens up things for other bands to come through. And I feel that if more bands are more open and are able to drop egos and tour with each other and not worry about lineup spots, or where they're playing on tours, or where they're playing on showcases, opening up, playing last, whatever the case is, I think if we're able to drop that and to just eat that humble pie for the greater sake of everyone, it'll not only make the genre bigger, the entire community of extreme metal will be in a much better place. And unfortunately, with lots of young musicians and bands that are coming up, I get it. It's the grind. It's the nature of the beast. You want to be the best, and you should want to be the best, and you should think you're the best. But you should also understand that what you're doing is to create and open the doors for everyone else. Because if Cannibal Corpse, if Morbid Angel, if Death, if Obituary, if these bands didn't open up and invite all these smaller bands on tours and showcases that also got bigger over the years, there'd be no room for us. And there should be lots of respect for that, and people should see it that way.
I think just like people not being so gatekeepers, you know, and like being more accepting of like people that are getting into the genre. Because I'm just speaking from this for myself when I was growing up. Like I was a very, I was a very closed-minded metalhead, like growing up and stuff. And like, and as I got older, you know, like I was just like that was so stupid. Like why? Not just death metal, but like I just hope like metal as a whole becomes even more accepting and more like willing to let people just step into it, you know. And it's not as like, oh no, like only certain people can like listen to these bands, or like you're a poser if you don't know these bands. Like nah, like that, it's such a dumb like mindset to have. Just let people enjoy music for what it is. I mean, we're all here for a common purpose, you know. We just to enjoy the music.
I don't know if I'd want to change it. I think it's great where it's at. You know, people like what they like, and like that's okay. I'm okay with that. Like I don't know if I want to change it at all. I think fitting into it, you know, is a different story. Like how would I want to see myself fit into it? Is, you know, like, you know, I don't know. I would want to see it. I want to be a part of the community as myself, not because I want to try to be what like the rest of the community sounds like. And I think if you're authentic, you can come across that way.